alluded to the humour of seeing again his house on the jolly corner, as he usually and quite fondly described it, the one in which he had first seen the light, in which various members of his family had lived and died, in which the holidays of his over-schooled boyhood had been passed, and the few social flowers of his chilled adolescence gathered, and which, alienated then for so long a period, had, through the successive deaths of his two brothers and the termination of old arrangements, come wholly into his hands. He was the owner of another, not quite so good, the jolly corner having been, from far back, superlatively extended and consecrated, and the value of the pair represented his main capital, with an income consisting, in these later years, of their respective rents which, thanks precisely to their original excellent type, had never been depressingly low. He could live in Europe, as he had been in the habit of living, on the product of these flourishing New York leases, and all the better since, that of the second structure, the mere number in its long row, having within a 12-month fallen in, renovation at a high advance had proved beautifully possible. These were items of property indeed, but he had found himself since his arrival distinguishing more than ever between them. The house within the street, 2 bristling blocks westward, was already in course of reconstruction as a tall mass of flats. He had acceded, some time before, to overtures for this conversion, in which, now that it was going forward, it had been not the least of his astonishments to find himself able, on the spot, and though without a previous ounce of such experience, to participate with a certain intelligence, almost with a certain authority. He had lived his life with his back so turned to such concerns, and his face addressed to those of so different an order, that he scarce knew what to make of this lively stir, in a compartment of his mind never yet penetrated, of a capacity for business, and a sense for construction. These virtues, so common all round him now, had been dormant in his own organism, where it might be said of them perhaps that they had slept the sleep of the just. At present, in the splendid autumn weather, the autumn at least was a pure boon in the terrible place, he loafed about his work undeterred, secretly agitated, not in the least minding that the whole proposition, as they said, was vulgar and sordid, and ready to climb ladders, to walk the plank, to handle materials and look wise about them, to ask questions, in fine, and challenge explanations, and really go into figures. It amused, it verily quite charmed him, and by the same stroke it amused, and even more, Alice Staverton, though perhaps charming her perceptibly less. She wasn't, however, going to be better off for it as he was, and so astonishingly much. Nothing was now likely, he knew, ever to make her better off than she found herself, in the afternoon of life, as the delicately frugal possessor and tenant of the small house in Irving Place to which she had subtly managed to cling through her almost unbroken New York career. If he knew the way to it now, better than to any other address among the dreadful multiplied numberings which seemed to him to reduce the whole place to some vast ledger page, overgrown, fantastic, of ruled and criss-crossed lines and figures, if he had formed for his consolation that habit, it was really not a little because of the charm of his having encountered and recognized, in the vast wilderness of the wholesale, breaking through the mere gross generalization of wealth and force and success, a small still scene where items and shades, all delicate things, kept the sharpness of the notes of a high voice perfectly trained, and where economy hung about like the scent of a garden. His old friend lived with one maid, and herself dusted her relics, and trimmed her lamps, and polished her silver. She stood oft, in the awful modern crush, when she could, but she sallied forth and did battle when the challenge was really to spirit, the spirit she after all confessed to, proudly and a little shyly, as to that